Superintendent Jon Fernandez. It's our education update, our progress report, like Sabrina likes to say. And he was off island last week, so we got a bit of catching up to do. So good morning to GDOE Superintendent Jon Fernandez in the KUAM News Link Zoom room. Good morning, John.
Yeah, happy day, Chris, Sabrina, Jason, and Isaiah. There's a lot to catch up on. Wherever you want to start, but I did. Yes, I was off island last week. Part of it was to go to the annual policy forum for the Council of Chief State School Officers, and then also to meet with our partners in USDOE in DC. So it was very productive. I think productive in many ways. I appreciated the opportunity to really touch base and see and share what was going on Guam with my colleagues. These are the other state superintendents for the other 50 states, as well as territories. And this really was a unique opportunity. It was the first time the council had come back in person since 2020. And just listening to what other states are going through, how they are moving through their decision-making processes, really gave me I think both a good picture of where we stand on Guam, as well as I would say reinvigorating my commitment to try to get us back to 5 days of instruction for all of our students. There was a whole range. I was on the main panel for the conference, and I was talking about our experience here on Guam, starting up, stopping again, and trying to restart and build confidence back in amongst our stakeholders in getting back to 5 days of instruction. And to my left was our Tennessee commissioner, who said, "Oh well, we never closed." So you had a bit of extremes, across the country. But again, there were a lot of common issues as well that we're dealing with: learning loss, dealing with the social and emotional strain that is being placed on students, families, and definitely on employees. Real interesting cases in leadership, depending on the different politics that are affecting the different states. So that was good. I think we announced on Guam that I was elected to join the board of directors for the council, and so I'm really thankful for for being asked to serve and to be able to provide a voice for Guam on that national stage. So that's something that we'll be able to do for the next 2 years. And then, of course, on the way back, I stopped in Washington, D.C. To meet with our risk management folks relative to our high risk and special conditions issues. As you know, over the last couple of years, as the pandemic has affected us, it's also affected USDOE and its activities. And I've been concerned about the loss of momentum in terms of trying to address these special conditions and get USDOE to visit and give its blessing to help remove some of these special conditions. That hasn't been possible because they've only been able to do virtual monitoring. But we did have a meeting, and I think to our surprise, and I think to the staff's surprise, the Deputy Assistant Secretary who was invited joined us. And I don't think anybody was sure whether he would attend. So we were happy to meet and discuss our situation with Deputy Assistant Secretary Phil Youngst. He is actually the head of the audit and risk management functions for the U.S. Department of Education. And he's just recently in that slot since the new administration has come in. So he was very interested in our making the case. Clearly, there's a bigger, there are challenges that are happening in Puerto Rico where a third party is also involved. And I think they're looking at Guam as to how we can complete this roadmap so that they can take the lessons learned and the best practice and use that in a much bigger situation in Puerto Rico. So we had that discussion, and I think the product of it is that we have a commitment to get an on-site visit this spring. So we were anticipating a virtual monitoring in January, but there are certain things in our reconsideration plan that are not going to be removed without an on-site visit. And so, there isn't any travel. There isn't a lot of travel going on to the territories for sure from USAID, but he did commit to try to set up a spring on-site visit. And so we're really looking forward to that as a way to pick up the momentum and get some of these decisions made prior to next summer. So I'll go ahead and stop there. I mean, there might be some, discussion. I know that we did talk a little bit in the, in the media about plans for returning to 5 days of instruction. So right now, the proposal I have on the table is a return for high school on December 1st, and then the return for all schools in early January once we return from the holidays. And again, as you know, there are a lot of factors that go into that decision. Clearly, the governor has already authorized all schools to reopen based on our assessment of our ability to operate safely and, and again, address the learning needs of our students. So we are, over the past several weeks, we've been monitoring the community safety, indicators, and it really, it looks like we'll be out of a high risk situation within the next week or so. And we're tracking that. The positivity rate is already at a low risk level. The number of cases probably has to come down a few, a little bit more. But by the time we hit the target date of December 1st, we should be back in a lower risk situation based on the CDC framework, which we, indicated was going to be our roadmap for how we approach the risk at our schools. That'll allow us, to move forward with reopening. The reason we proposed high school in December was because, the vaccination rate for 12 to 17-year-olds is already at about 75% and higher for the high schoolers who've had the opportunity, earlier to get the vaccine. So, we're seeing that as an opportunity for the high schoolers to be able to come back first. And then, with the 5 to 11-year-old vaccinations being pushed out, giving our families the end of November and December to take advantage of the vaccination opportunities, we hope that'll give, families the choice of getting that vaccination before they return to school in January. I do want to say, however, that we are still in active discussion with several board members who are, some of whom are actually pushing for an earlier start for all schools, possibly by the beginning of December. So we've indicated, that if the board would like to go in that direction, then we need that to be decided by our next board meeting on the 23rd. We do have a couple of input sessions for our stakeholders coming up, I believe, tomorrow and then next Monday, to be able to share the plan, get some input and make some final decisions. But again, the priority for GDOE, now that we are in a safer position to reopen, the priority is to get back, focus on teaching and learning, and make sure our kids don't fall behind their counterparts on the mainland or in the rest of the world. So that's something we're going to be communicating and sharing with our stakeholders. We anticipate there will be some pushback. We know that no matter how the situation looks, COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact on the community, and I know that people are always going to feel, that they're, anxious about, getting back to normal. But it is important to recognize our job and our commitment to getting kids back into school. We think we can do so safely, and we plan to make that case as we get into the end of November, early December.
John, do you think that
I'll go ahead and stop there and take any questions you guys have.
We actually have Isaiah, our education reporter. He's in the Zoom room, and
Good morning, Superintendent Fernandez, and congratulations on your election. I wanted to ask, Guam Education Board member Maria Gutierrez made a comment about the rough conditions some school facilities are in. I was wondering, is there a plan to take a tour of these schools, or what can GDOE do to, improve the conditions they are in?
Well, if anybody knows the conditions of our schools, is Ms. Gutierrez. She's been on the board for, forever. And she's known our budget situation. She's known our school facility situation. So, I take her observations as a continued call to action for resources to address our facilities. And we're lucky that we do have federal funds that she is well aware will be dedicated to addressing canopies, addressing, the other needs of the schools. So we're working with her and our federal team and our Army Corps of Engineers, consultants, and so forth to get that plan rolling so that we can begin to make some of those fixes and those repairs that have not been able to be done, in the past because of some of the resource issues that we face now. We look forward to that. I mean, just as we head into this next, board meeting, we're probably going to be talking about our budget situation. And as you know, if you look at our budget that we got this year, our appropriation, we are already, acknowledging that our budget has fallen and is falling short on the operation side. So trying to fund all of our educators and our staff while at the same time maintaining our schools has really been a juggling act and hard to sustain when you've seen a $30 million cut to our local education budget over the past 3 years. So in addition to Mrs. Gutierrez, taking the lead and really calling attention to our facilities, but also, participating in the planning for how we want to expend, and invest those federal dollars, that's going to be really key. And then our chairman and our vice chair, Mr. Mendiola and Dr. Okada, have both really called out the question about the budget. They've asked us to come back with a plan, and we've submitted that plan to our board members for their review. And part of that plan involves going to the governor and asking for additional resources so that we can hire the personnel that we need to hire to keep our schools safe and supervised, as well as to support the essential operations at the school, including maintenance. So we look forward to our chair and vice chair's leadership on the budget side to help us with that request. And again, these are all coming together, based on the budget being passed and based on the commitment to reopen schools, knowing that we do need a lot of support to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Just real quickly, because we are pushing at the top of the hour, I did want to follow up in the virtual sessions that you're going to be holding with the stakeholders. Will you be discussing the testing policy for students?
I don't have you're talking about the mandatory,
Yes,
the mandatory
yes.
screening testing. So we don't, no, that's not yet ready for discussion with the stakeholders at this point. So we're targeting in January would be the earliest probably that we would implement. But I know that our team has been doing its research, and there are several questions that we need to clarify before we finalize the plan. So I just returned, but over the time I was gone, there were a set of questions that I know our team came up with that we really need to finalize and answer before we can provide a plan. So again, just to be clear, that is something that has been included as part of our safety measures pursuant to public health's guidance. We don't anticipate, and we have not heard any move to make testing mandatory or vaccinations mandatory. We understand that for our kids and their parents, that it is going to be their choice to be vaccinated or to be tested. So our planning is basically using that as a basis for our starting assumptions. So that's where we're at, and at this point, our focus is going to be on reopening. Why we are proposing the time frame for reopening, what the safety factors look like that are contributing to that decision, and then answering any questions or hearing any ideas that might come from our stakeholders at this time.
John, I just wanted to ask, so when we return to face-to-face, are you confident that you have all the measures and the testing and everything you need to stay open in these less than desirable COVID conditions? Like, let's say we see an increase in the, what was it, you called it, the risk status.
Right. I mean, we're always going to have to monitor the community risk situation and make decisions accordingly. So, we can't predict what will happen. We do know that we just been through a second wave. I do think that we want, after having operated in cohorts, we believe that was a good strategy to get us back into school through a period of high risk, in our community health situation. We're also lucky that we've been able to track cases that have been reported and ensure that there is no spread, within our schools. So as we now come back, I mean, even though these are less than desirable situation, it's more desirable than where we were back in September, right? So, we have seen an improvement in the community health situation. So our job now is to get our kids back to 5 days of instruction and to sustain that. And we want to work with the governor not to do any, not to go into any immediate or sudden shutdowns, but allow us the flexibility to, to perhaps go back into cohorts should the community situation get worse. One of my big concerns is I am hearing that the governor is considering relaxing restrictions. And, my concern is that happened back in July, July 30th, just a week and a half before we started schools. And we started to see the cases, rise, prior to the start of the school year, which really complicated, our ability to open up and then keep our stakeholders confident that we were keeping our kids safe at school. So based on what we've learned, though, the spread was happening in the community, happening in the households, and because of that, it impacted our ability to keep our community confident that schools could remain open. So we hope that doesn't happen again, and we hope that schools will, the opening of schools and the continued, focus on education will be a priority, going into this next set of decisions about the restrictions on the community. We hope that keeping schools open will be, a top priority.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Oh, sorry. Before we go, we wanted to recognize our friends over at KFC. Can we pop up those pictures? John, I don't know if you saw this, but it's related to our conversation we had with board member Miss Maria G. Last week.
Yes.
Mrs. G. So she was able to finagle a cool donation out of KFC. They donated to 50 umbrellas to Finnegodson Elementary School. I'm just laughing because I can just imagine Mrs. G like, "You gonna donate the umbrella or what?"
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I'm really thankful to KFC for their their contribution. I mean, I do my best to to contribute to KFC and get their hot wings. So I feel like I put that investment in. But no, really, I do want to thank them for responding to the call and at least providing a temporary solution. These canopies that we're talking about really do take. I mean, we're talking about rebuilding the canopies versus putting plywood back over it, over these things. So it'll take some time, but it is amongst our priority projects for the American Rescue Plan funds. So we'll be working with Mrs. G to make sure that we have that permanent solution in place.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you, KFC.
All right, on. There you go. Hey, it's 9:03. We're going to take a quick break and come back. We're going to go in with diabetes, right, as we're doing all week long. It's 9:02 on the link.